to order and hope that Ross is able to join us. Does somebody have a way to text him? I don't know if... Give me 1 second. Okay, I just texted him. Bear with me, I am doing the presentation show tonight, so I need to share my screen.
Okay.
Hopefully you see it, correct?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. First item on the agenda, obviously after calling to order, public participation. Is there anybody from the public or any updates from town or Board of Ed or anything that they want to throw in here?
Well, I'll take a shot at it. I would just like to say that I think the meeting before, 2 meetings before, I had to apologize to the board because I raised my voice too much during the meeting. And I have to make an apology for the last meeting because I think I was too rigid in regards to the number that we were carrying forward, the number that we were solving for, and especially as it related to the 1.22 million. And I said I didn't trust that number. I understand that. So my approach to handling that was wrong, but I do understand there's been a correction to that number, which would be helpful to us.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. Any other comments? Okay. Okay, Ross did not get the link for tonight. I'm going to guess, let me just text him.
Emily, I can send it to him.
Okay, can you send it to his home email?
Not sure I know what that is.
Okay, let me. I'm not sure.
It should be on the, his address should be on the email that was originally sent from Kathleen.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
I thought it was his, that's just his Bolton, Connecticut email, not his
Oh, no,
email.
it actually,
What?
It is Ross_Lally.
Yep. Oh, at Hotmail.
Yep.
I do have it.
Okay. Let me just send it to him again. Okay. Sending it again. Okay, my apologies. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We actually have 5 meetings worth of minutes to approve. I am going to make a recommendation that we table that. We have town and staff reports that to go through and a detailed conversation on budget. So if there are no objections, I am going to table the approval of the minutes.
Fine.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, fabulous. I will make sure that I put that on the next agenda. Okay, I apologize. Let me I just sent it again to him, and did you get it?
Emily, I emailed it to him as well.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is the elected office and town staff report. Board of Education is up first, if that's okay with you. Let me switch to the Board of Ed. Do you see the Board of Ed statement in front of you?
No, not yet.
Okay, so apparently it doesn't automatically swap. Okay,
There it goes.
now do you see it?
Yep.
Okay. Superintendent Hecht, would you like to give the Board of Education update?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. So we are 64% expended. I think a particular note right now is the $50,000 transfer that occurred, which I believe you do have a memo for, and that is to buy replacement Chromebooks. You may recall that last year we purchased Chromebooks in July and we received them in February. So we received word that there is going to be, and there already is for certain models, a shortage. And so we are placing an order, some of which we learned today that we will be able to get 75 of the 150 we've ordered. We're not sure when the other 75 are going to come. Right now, they're saying potentially June. Some of this money may be able to be returned. We did put a portion of this into our ESSER 2 grant. We don't know if that's been approved yet, but as I shared, I think on Tuesday night, we have applied for that, but I needed the money up front to be able to place the order while we could still get our hands on at least half of what we need. Students will be using these this year as well as during the summer. I believe I shared also last time that we are standing up a summer program for those students who have learning loss. So they're going to need to be keeping their Chromebooks and working on things over the summer. Really all kids will be, but particularly those that have had learning loss. That's all I have.
Okay. I can put up the transfer document if you're interested. Pretty much says what Kristen Hecht just said. So do we have any questions for Superintendent Hecht? I can go back to the
There's Ross.
yeah. Give me a second.
How do you know who has a learning loss?
Can you say that again, Bob?
Was it about, how do we know about learning loss, Bob? Was that the question?
Yeah. How do you identify that there's students with learning loss?
Yep. So we are doing a lot of assessments, whether they be formative or summative or sort of assessments along the way regarding markers about where kids should be in their development of learning for particular areas, specifically English language arts and mathematics. And we are continuing to do those assessments and evaluations. We've been doing them all year long. We do them all the time. And right now we are compiling all of the data to really examine at this point in the year, you know, now that we're 3/4 of the way done, where are our students and who has the largest need for some support with regards to learning loss.
Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions for Superintendent Hecht or the Board of Education? I do note and I apologize, if you raise your hand, when I'm presenting, I don't see everybody's icon, so it's harder for me to see hands up. Okay, Dick Tuttle, I see your hand up.
I think Bob Monroe was actually before me.
Okay, Bob Monroe.
Yeah, quick question for Kristen, please. I believe if memory serves, this would be the second transfer of $50,000 out of the wages and benefits line for the year.
You could be right, Bob. I would have to go back and look through all the reports. To be honest with you, I don't have that off the top of my head tonight, but okay. I can go back and look while we're here tonight.
I'm pretty sure we had noted one previously. And
I do believe we've had other, yeah, we definitely have, because we've had some needs that we've had to, actually, you're right, because we transferred money for the ViewSonic boards, so that every single teacher had the same boards instead of working off of different boards, and the inability to be interactive and operational with each other, especially while we're doing remote learning. So yes, that is correct. And that was a direct result of the pandemic. We would have been in a replacement cycle that took time, but because of so many students choosing to be at home for remote learning, or because we had to pivot at certain times and be remote, all of us, for a variety of different reasons, that was essential that we complete that task immediately.
Thank you.
Okay, Dick Tuttle.
Thank you, Emily. Kristen, I know you're doing your evaluations now, but do you have a sense for how many kids we're talking about, or who have experienced learning loss?
I don't yet, Bob. We are in the process of gathering that data, and teachers are meeting after we get back from break to meet with the principals to analyze that data. So I would say we're probably a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks out yet before I have probably a final list. And then it will become a matter of whether or not the parents, allow for their kids to participate in a summer program, at which point, we're going to just continue to move on the list.
Thank you.
Okay. Charlie.
Kristen, are each of these these are replacement and new purchases of the computers and of the laptops, and the summer work, are these all reimbursable by the COVID funding, or do we know yet if they might be? Or
so it won't be fully reimbursable, Charlie. We wrote for close to half, not quite half, but it's really going to depend on whether or not we need to make budget changes in that grant, depending upon what summer school may cost. For example, I budgeted for 3 school buses, right? Because we're going to provide transportation. But if we have, a lot of students take advantage of it and all want transportation, and I have to have a 4th bus, then that's going to take money out of the pot, if you will, to go towards these replacement Chromebooks. The other issue becomes also is that if we don't get these in time in this fiscal year, at least some of them, right? The 75 we think they have in stock and we should get any day now, although I always feel much better when I have them in hand as opposed to that commentary, because we listen to that every other week from July to February. Then money gets returned, and then potentially, we'll have to pay for the remaining out of ESSER 3 monies, which we're still waiting for final determination, right, on how we can use it. So it certainly isn't the full amount for sure. How much of the amount is going to be dependent upon the summer programming. That's not a great answer, but that's what I have.
Thank you.
Yep. We just don't have all our ducks in a row yet, with regards to the summer piece. So we're taking a guess right now about what we need.
Is this money that's already in the budget that we're going against and transferring?
No, so the summer program is out of the ESSER 2 funds that we're receiving. And that's one of the areas that we are, basically every school district is being asked to stand up some type of program to address learning loss. So the summer program is totally grant funded. We put additional funds in the grant for some of the Chromebooks. But again, I won't know how much money we'll have to go towards the Chromebooks until we can determine, do we need 3 buses or 4? Do we need more materials than we budgeted for? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. Any other hands up that I'm missing? I don't. I do have one question. I see that you are projecting at this point potentially another $56,000 of under expenditure. Do you have a sense of when you might be able to either release those or do something with those?
Well, it wouldn't be until the May board meeting. I don't, the board has to take that action, Emily. I can't take that on my own.
So, okay. That was sort of what I was thinking. I couldn't remember exactly when your meeting was. I thought it was last week, but I wasn't sure. Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
We meet on May 13th.
Okay. Oh, Bob and Roe.
Yeah, I also am very concerned about where we are with this budget. And so I'm going to ask the following question. I'm going to put Kristen on the spot here a little bit. Sorry to say, kiddo, but I know you think on your feet. What I have been listening to throughout the year and knowing and keeping in mind that this has been an incredibly difficult year in so many different regards, especially planning, that you have had a number of vacancies that you've been carrying from the beginning of the year. My understanding was that these were predominantly in the special ed area, which was truly unfortunate. However, the circumstances in that area are such that it's understandable, I think, being that these are one-on-one teachers for the most part and that type of thing. So those positions, unfortunately, have gone unfilled. And on a whole year basis, and I guess that probably the baseline that you could start correcting me on, Kristen, would be this. I was under the impression that there was a total of maybe 6 or 7 full-time positions that were not filled.
5. We're at 5 right now.
Okay, 5 is a good number, thank you.
But that's today, I gotta tell you, it's varied all year long. We've had people coming and going.
Oh yeah, okay, so you've been able to hire some people?
Yeah, we've been able to hire a few, but then we've had a few leave. So,
All right, well, even 5. I'll just deal with the 5 number.
Let's go with 5 for right now.
Sure. And I much appreciate the fact that the Board of Education stepped up early in this process and said, hey, here's, we believe that we can put $275,000 toward this budget because, in fact, of these unfilled positions or some portion of them. And that has, obviously has been a great help, but we are still in substantial trouble here, in my opinion. So my question is this: if an average position, and I know when you're budgeting for these for all the right reasons, you budget typically top of the line, top of scale, and also family insurance.
I'm seeing Kristen shake her head.
So we budget family insurance. Yes, we don't budget top of the line. Unless
but you think the market would be
shortage.
Right. But seldom though, is it you looking at step 1?
Well, these positions that we're talking about are paraprofessional positions that are not filled. We were finally able to fill the special education position with a paraprofessional that was going to UConn to get certified. And after a lot of work with the state and UConn, we were able to get a special, what's called a DSAP waiver. So that person is currently teaching while student teaching, if you will, and getting paid as a teacher. So the teacher position we were able to fill. The other positions are paraprofessional positions. And currently we are in a world of hurt in the area of special education.
Understood. But thank you for that clarification, because I was trying to wonder, I'm looking for money. You might well understand. And what I was wondering is, okay, I was thinking about 6 positions. We'll go with 5. And the average cost of those positions, now that I understand they're paraprofessionals, I did not know that before. So I would put a higher value on them, what the salary might have been plus family insurance. But if there's 5, I'm just wondering if that means that in these last 3 months, we'll be, or you guys, the Board of Education, will be building up more surplus funds as a consequence. And as Emily pointed out a little while ago, you are projecting right now, I think $56,000 still underspent, but couldn't be spent. That maybe that number is higher, and maybe substantially so. Is there some consideration, and I know the time is short, that the Board of Ed might be able to look at those numbers carefully enough to say, okay, we can come up with some additional monies yet as a consequence of those unfilled positions, and likely won't be filled before the end of the year. And so, I guess, okay.
I guess what I want to say is I can't say yes and I can't say no, right? The board would have to convene a special meeting, which is we can do that certainly. I need to talk to the chair to find out, what they want to do. So
clear, yeah, understood.
But you're right. We're going to continue to accumulate, savings for sure, right? Mm-hmm. Unspent funds, most definitely, between now and the end of the year.
Right. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I asked that because we're in a hurting situation here. So we may, and unfortunately, part of the reason why we're in a hurting situation is because there's monies coming to us, but we don't know what they are and when they're going to get here. Your fund's a good example and point. So we're going to have to really squeeze in order to try to get a budget, at least in my opinion, that the townspeople will approve. So that's the reason for that question. And I guess just to buttress my point, if I might, if it wasn't actually a point, or what I was trying to say, would be that the unspent funds that you were projecting, even at the end of, I think, February, at that point was approximately $386,000 total. And my simple brain was telling me that the unspent monies at the end of the year would actually be close to that number again. Somewhere around 700,000. Again, you guys have already stepped up with 275, but if indeed my basic math is any semblance in reality, then there should be more money yet. And maybe enough significantly so that it could impact our discussions.
Yeah, I guess I want to say this though, right? We still have April, May, and most of June to go, right? Mm-hmm. And we're sitting on a $56,000 savings, if you will, right now, right after the commitment already of the 275. I totally hear what you're saying. I get there's a world of hurt. And we definitely want to do our part. That I know I can speak for the board on. Mm-hmm. But the question remains, to your point, there will be money left at the end, but there's also time to go between now and the end, right? And so, it's something that I'm going to have to analyze with Casal. And I am probably not going to, I may not have an answer by Tuesday. I'm just being honest. I just don't know.
We have to look at alternatives. Who knows,
Yeah. I'm just not sure.
Yeah, just one way of looking at it, would be to look at the money spent and the combination of wages and benefits through the end of March. It was $8,008,000, I do believe. When you look at the budget for that, I believe that we're looking at 12 million. Yeah, 12,062,000 for the budget number. The difference between what has been spent and what remains available from the combination of those two line items is $50,000. Now, I understand that you have commitments that go through the summer that would probably be charged to this year for teachers who opted for a 12-month salary or whatever.
Well, they go to June 30th. It goes to June 30th.
Right. So when I just did simple math and averaging, that comes out to be, a little less than $900,000 a month. And with 3 months to go, that'd be 2.7 million if you just multiply it by 3. But I know it's not that simple, so I used a factor of 3.5 to try to take care of those extra pay period or whatever. So it sounds like maybe not that far off. That would bring that number of needed monies to 3.1 million. But looking at the budget, we're talking about 4,050,000. So that's what I would hope that maybe you guys could have a discussion on and see what you might be able to do. I know these numbers are fluid and you have a lot of things that you would tend to here, but that is a fairly large gap. Any portion of which would be very helpful to us now.
Yeah. So the one thing I want to say to that, and this is something, Bob, that you and I have had conversations now for a decade on, okay?
Yes.
Is that even if we're able to figure that out and provide more, in the end, everybody needs to remember, because we're in this cycle that we can't seem to break, right? About then what we do return goes towards next year's budget.
Correct.
So I worry, right, using the analysis that you just offered. I'm not saying you're wrong necessarily. I'm simply pointing out that it could potentially then mean that next year we're in more of a world of hurt than we're in this year. And I just want to call that to everyone's attention. And I think that we all need to be mindful of that as we look to make decisions. And you guys may feel differently, but I feel compelled to say that because, in my head, I'd love us to not be in that position ever. But this has just been something that as a community has been done. And it's just a concern I'm raising.
Right. And I hear you loud and clear, Kristen, and it's an absolutely appropriate point. Also, I would say in that response is, right now, our vision on these monies that are coming to the town through these various federal programs is totally unknown and unclear. But it is coming, and I don't know how much it is, and I don't know when it's coming. So this would buy us time. But you're absolutely correct that any type of move like that would diminish funds that would come forward next year. So that's my piece on that. I'm sorry, but just if you could have a serious discussion with Chris Allen, I would very much appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm going to text Andrew right now. I believe he's at work, but to see if we can. See, I need Casal to do the work before I can have an emergency board meeting, and Casal is off tomorrow and Monday. It is vacation. So I don't have Casal at my fingertips right at the moment.
Right, and that's unfortunate because she's very competent at it. So.
She's essential for sure. So I guess my point being that not going to have that information likely by Tuesday. I don't think, but.
Well, just to jump in, I see that Dick Tuttle's hands up as well. But to that point of, what we have, we will have, and we will make decisions based on that for our public hearing. And then if new information comes in, we can always alter it and potentially change what we're doing based on new information and information from the public hearing. So whenever as long as it's before referendum, is better than not knowing at all.
Okay, and that's helpful, right? Because it is, like I said, it is vacation week next week. So, but I'm texting Andrew as we speak.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Bob, are you done with your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Dick Tuttle, I see your hand up.
I can defer my question until after Kristen is finished communicating via text, if you like, because this was another follow-up on Bob's subject.
Go ahead, Dick. I'll wait. Go ahead. It's okay.
Okay, sure. Thanks. So what does your run rate curve look like? Does it start off in July and August with relatively low expenditures and then accelerates through the next 10 months to a steeper curve? Or is it more like a 45-degree curve from the start to the finish?
So our salary piece in the summer is administrators and 12-month employees, custodians, a few secretaries, and central office personnel. So, right, so that's a small pot, right? Because it doesn't include the teachers, except for those teachers who select to be paid throughout the year as opposed to just during the school year, and they have that option. It really ramps up come the first pay period once school starts. That's true for salaries, right? The benefits start off right away. Lots of times, we got to pay our benefits every month, right? Yep. The regular education piece, there's a lot that happens over the summer because teachers need a lot of materials for the start of school. So that piece is often quite busy in the summertime. And obviously,
so that leads to my question.
Projects for operations and facilities in the summer too, right? Because kids aren't in school.
Yeah. So that pretty much frames my question, which is, you're at 65% expensed right now, and yet you're at 70, somewhere between 70 and 75% through your year. And if you were 75%, that would indicate you're probably going to underrun by 10%. And if you're 5%, half of that. So 10% would be something like 1.5 million as an underrun. Let's say it's the lower number, 750,000, of which you've already given back 275 and may be in the process of an additional 56. So that's 325, basically. Still looks like there's going to be a ways to go. And to your point, anything that you don't give back this year will lower the budget the following year. Not this next year, but fiscal year 23, because that will flow right into free cash available at the beginning of the cycle. Would you agree with those numbers?
Well, those are your numbers, and I need to sit with Casal, Dick, with all due respect.
Yeah, I know, but does the reasoning sound correct? That you're probably
well, yes and no, Dick. Yes and no.
Probably going to underrun by at least 750 total.
Potentially, but maybe not. For example, I've got a $27,000 bill coming to put air conditioning in at Bolton Center School from May 10th to June 10th, because I can't run fans because we're not allowed to do that during COVID. We're buying more PPE because we're running low in certain areas. So there's things that keep happening consistently where like the next shoe drops and now we've got to respond. We're going to be running our utilities more because we're going to be back in school on Wednesdays. We haven't been in school on Wednesdays all year long. So there's changes afoot, right, that have financial costs to them. I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong. I'm just saying that we have things afoot that keep happening.
Fair enough. You've answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Gorley.
This may be a quick answer because there's no real separate line item for it, but it was the question about snow days. If there was a decision that was made to maybe not reduce, but eliminate many of them just because we have, made this transfer, I think fairly successfully of what we can accomplish virtually. But they hadn't made a decision on it. I know the last time it was brought up. Again, it's not a separate line item, but if they have made some type of a decision, would there be some possibilities of maybe skimming or reducing certain line items like electricity and support services, just because the school wouldn't be in session for those days that are normally, you know, I would think allotted for.
So when, you know, if that's the route that the state is going to allow us to go, to have virtual days on snow days, right? All of the support staff and the teachers, everybody's still working on those days. They're still supporting students and doing their part. You know, there may be some minute savings, you know, for the 2 or 3 potential snow days that we may have, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
With regards to electricity, but we're not talking anything of any great significance. Like the lights will still be on, the custodians will still be working. They're cleaning up, you know, outside and having to come in. So.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I don't see that really as offering us much, but it's a fair question.
Okay. Any other questions for Superintendent Hecht on the Board of Education update?
You know, the other thing I just want to point out, right, about the funds without being able to hire people, you know, so I did share that we were able to hire, you know, a teacher, and we were able to hire 1 para, but then we had a para go. We're still trying to hire paras because we have a great need for paraprofessionals. So we continue to have postings out there to try to hire people. Because we do have children with significant needs, and we need to make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing. And we had a number of children with significant needs who were remaining home who have decided to return to school. So when they were at home, it was a different set of circumstances, just in terms of how we pulled people and could provide supports the way that the IEPs directed that we do. So we've had a lot more families and children decide to come back to school within the last several weeks. And we've been notified of more that intend to return to school after April break. So it's not like those positions aren't needed. It's simply been a matter of trying to find individuals who want to work in them. So that's the other challenge that we have, right? Is that we have all of these students coming back, and we need to make sure that we try our very best to provide supports. So if all that money gets released, then that also puts us in a pickle. So I just want to call that to everyone's attention, that that's another piece that we have to try to balance.
Fair enough. Okay. If there are no other questions for Board of Education, Superintendent Hecht, then let's move on to our town updates. And I guess we will start with our tax collection summary, which is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jim, are you going to talk to the tax collector report, or Sandy?
Well, I was personally hoping Sandy would, since I have 4 days of experience and she has slightly more than that.
Thank you, Jim, for not saying how much more. We continue to do an excellent job in tax collection. All of the categories are over what we expected, with the exception of motor vehicle, supplemental motor vehicle levy, and interest and fees on past due taxes. And as we do an excellent job on collecting past due taxes, the interest that people are paying, which is effectively 1% per month on the outstanding balance, gets to be less and less. Motor vehicle, this is a report as of 3/31. Motor vehicle taxes were not due until April 1. So there may be some, I'm sorry, the supplemental motor vehicle levy was not due until April 1. So we may see some collections in there as well. But overall, we have already collected every dollar we budgeted to collect.
Great, thank you, Sandy. I know if anybody is curious in terms of how we are doing this year versus previous years, you can see that previous years, or last year we were at 101.85, this year at more 100.49. So any other questions on the tax collection reports?
Nope.
Okay, then we will move on to the revenues. Okay. If somebody, Sandy, do you want to go through the things of note, things that we don't think we're going to get, we're in trouble of not getting? I would say don't have to do line item by line item, but if there's some big...
Yeah, I actually am having difficulty seeing this, Emily, but I don't believe there's anything here that we believe we will not get that's of any significance.
Okay. Is it projecting the thing, or is it just...
I'm getting a very tiny little picture, and I don't know if it's you or me. It could easily be me.
Okay. Well, it's taken up my whole screen, so I don't think I can make it any bigger. Are there any questions from the board? And I have, if somebody has their hand raised, because I'm scrolling this. Does anybody have their hands raised? Just speak up, please.
Yeah, I do.
Tuttle does.
Okay, Tuttle, please.
Thanks. Tuttle is searching through his stuff here. Just one moment. I got to get out of full screen so that I can minimize. And
while we're looking, Emily, could you back it up to look at that interest number again? Here you go. Thank you.
Okay, so actual to date is $27,000.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It's the line above.
Oh, sorry. $23,000.
So, can I ask my question right now?
Yes, you can, Dick.
Oh, okay, thanks. So I found the document that I was looking for. With the give back of 175 from the Board of Selectmen, given what was spent in fiscal year 2020, you're still on pace to spend $539,000 more. Is it likely that you can give us more before we have to go through the budget finalization next week?
I think I told you the other night that we were ready to commit to a definite 175,000.
Yes.
And because I haven't had time to do anything other than drive back and forth to work and go to meetings for the town of Bolton.
Yeah.
I have not had the opportunity to sit with Jim and the finance department to go through this line by line. And unfortunately, I no longer have the person who has all of this information in their head. So it's going to take us some significant effort to get beyond that 175.
Okay.
But so it is on the to-do list, and we will be working on it starting next week.
Thank you. That's all we can ask. It is 9.7% over what was spent in 2020, the previous year.
I'm sorry, Dick, I didn't understand that comment.
So with a cut of 175 from the budget item, from your line of the budget, the summary line, you're 539,000 above what was spent in 2020, the previous year, which is a 9.7% increase, which is projected. And this is why I'm asking the question.
Okay, so Dick, you're talking expenditures, right?
Expenditures, yes.
Okay. then I will stop sharing the revenue screen because that really doesn't do us any good there.
If you'd like to see my screen, I can share it with you. I do have a PowerPoint slide.
Okay, we haven't talked about the expenditures left. Do you want to see what the current expenditures report is first, or?
Oh, we can do that, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So Sandy or Jim, do you have the town expenditures report that was not forwarded to me to share?
I think I might. I'm going to need a minute because I've got to go get it. Oh.
So Dick, I think if we look at our expenditures and then fold into your question, that might, because the number, it'll be easier to see the numbers in expenditures and then be able to relate it back to your question, I think.
Emily, I have it. I'm not sure if I'll be able to share it though.
Give it a try.
I think, Sandy, all you do is display it on your screen.
Then
hit the share screen at the bottom. And then I'm not sure if it asks you a question, which application you should share.
I just have to be very careful because I could be sharing someone else's tax return. Are you seeing it now?
Yes, we are.
Thank you, Sandy. You were successful.
Okay.
Thank you. Looks beautiful.
Good. And the people who are on my other 3 screens are very happy as well. As has been Josh's habit over the past several weeks, months, whatever, the only category that remains over and of concern is land use. And the Board of Selectmen came up with an innovative solution for that, and that is to move Jim Rupert to the administration budget. So there won't be, I don't anticipate that land use next month will be of concern anymore. Right now, we are at the end of March, we are 53.94% expended. But you need to remember that we have just gotten into construction season, and many of our highway projects have not been even started at this point. If you look at highway, we have a balance of 505,000 in there. Most of that is anticipated to be spent in April, May, and June on road repairs and road resurfacing. So that's going to eat up a significant amount of funds there. The other thing that hasn't been expended yet is parks and building operations. And we are just now starting the season where the parks will be in full use and they'll be maintaining ball fields and things, and Indian Notch Park. So we'll have some fairly large expenditures in those areas as well. So, you know, I'm going to look for money. I'm not sure there's a lot there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking here at 59% expense. Last year, we were 58% expensed. So right on target, at least with last year. And I don't remember what the weirdness of fiscal year 19 was of why we're so high in this particular time, but.
Yeah, I don't either, other than I believe it was a bad winter.
Could very well be.
Your crews were out with a supplier removing sand for the last few days, and so that obviously has not been billed.
Oh, the highway crew, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That project actually takes more than a week.
They've been at it for a little while. Yeah.
Dick, what are you implying here?
Sorry, Bob DiPietro.
Yeah, I want to know where we're going with this. Dick, what are you implying with all this?
I'm sorry?
So Dick, your question that you had earlier, I think Bob is asking now, where were you going with, now that we've seen the expenditures report, you had a question that had to do with expenditures.
So,
Right.
so it was a similar question that we posed to Kristen, basically was, is there any more water in the well? And we're posing that to Sandy, and I can show you the motivation why I asked the question if you like, but I'll need to share my screen.
Well, I'm curious.
Do I have permission for that?
Yes, you may. So I think Sandy, you'll have to stop sharing so that Dick can share his.
Whoops.
No whoopses, please.
Yeah, no, it's, I was about to have me leave the meeting and rather than not share my screen.
Now you're scaring me.
Why? Oh, leave the meeting. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, we don't need you to leave the meeting just yet.
Yeah, yeah.
You're still in the honeymoon period, Jim. You've got nothing to fear.
All right.
Nothing to fear but fear itself. I'm just saying.
Some of you Zoomers need to coach me through unsharing.
Up at the top, there should have been something. There you go. Whatever you clicked, it worked.
All right.
So I'm going to do this, and I've got a million things open, and I'm trying to figure out which one I've got.
Just don't show us your tax return.
Oh, you think that I do my taxes on time? You've got another thought coming.
They're not due for another month. Hallelujah.
Still working on last year's.
Trusts and C corporations are due today. I still have 2 on my desk.
So I did this spreadsheet or this PowerPoint slide so I could understand and reconcile the difference in free cash flow because
Dick, just quickly, I am not seeing anything. Is anybody else seeing?
No.
No. So can you try sharing your screen again?
I will try that. Just a second. There we go. Hold on. So do you see that or not?
No.
Yep. Did you?
Nope.
Once you select the object to share, you need to click OK.
This hold control to select multiple windows. That's not what I want to do. I can ask this question without showing this to you. Basically.
Okay, why don't you try that?
But I wanted to reconcile the difference in starting cash flow, free cash. Okay, we went from 2.2 at the start of 2020. At the start of 2021, we were at 2.5, and now we're going to 1.267. Okay, and so I was comparing expenditures, comparing revenues, and the difference in starting free cash flows, and was able to reconcile it quite nicely. And the root cause for why we're so low at only 1.2 is that we've got about, let me see if I can find this one right here. We've got expenditures are up by 1.265. Okay, revenues are down by 0.371, and free cash flow is up by 343,000. So I'm looking through all the various components that go into expenditures and revenues, et cetera, and I noticed that the Board of Selectmen is still on course, even with their $175,000 give back of exceeding this current year's spending by 500. This exceeding the previous year's spending by 539,000. So my question to Sandy was, is there more water in the well? And I think she's kind of answered it by she and Jim are going to take a look at that and see what they can do by next Tuesday. Is that have I captured that, Sandy?
except I just read Sandy's lips that said not by next Tuesday, because you were on mute.
That's correct. It won't be next Tuesday.
So you're saying it won't be timely?
No, I'm saying it won't be next Tuesday. Typically, we've made a commitment before the hearing and then freshened that number after the hearing.
So similar to what we're expecting from the Board of Ed.
Fair enough. What you're basically saying is that we won't be able to do that before the hearing, but we may be able to adjust it after the hearing, but before the referendum.
Correct.
And this year we're having a referendum, whereas last year all we had was the hearing, and then we had the immediate meeting afterwards to set the mill rate.
True.
Right, and if we have an approved referendum, and then there's other monies, we can adjust the, what would have been the anticipated mill rate, we can adjust it downward.
The referendum, to be clear, is only authorizing expenditures. It's not
correct.
It's not setting the mill rate.
Very
good. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay. Thank you, Dick. Kristen, I see your hand up.
Yeah. Just in relation to Dick's analysis there, one of the things, and I'm not sure if it was included or not, I would think though would have contributed to expenditures being so far up was the road work that was done for Enrico, which was 220,000
approximately. Yes.
So then you add that and the 175.
So the 175 has already been accounted for. Yes. 220 is part of that that's driving it, but there still should be about 320 still left if you held spending at close to last year's levels.
Yeah, so some of that went into the capital reserve and the capital equipment account, Yeah.
So I think what we are all hoping is that some point in the future, hopefully not the too distant future, that both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education will be able to do some additional give backing. I did not conjugate that correctly. Make additional give backs to the budget coming up for next year.
Yeah, so, after the hearing.
It'll be most likely after the hearing, because the hearing is the 27th. We have to have the documents to town clerk by the 22nd, which is a week from today, and go from there. Are there any other?
Can I just throw something out? So I'm working hard right now to try to get an emergency meeting with my board on the 29th of April. And let me explain the reasoning for that. I already talked about Casal being out. The other piece we're waiting on, though, that I think will be helpful, I get this isn't helpful for the public hearing, I get that part, but is the health insurance. Hopefully by then the state will have released their rates, and Sandy and I can have our staff be looking at, because there's savings to be had there. How much? But once the state releases their rates, we can dig into that too. So I think there'll be two pieces. Hopefully the state releases their rates by then, and in enough time for us to dig into that. So it will be after the 29th of April where I will be able to have more information. I get that's not ideal for the 27th, but like I said, I wasn't going to be able to get it to you by Tuesday anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, Kristen, thank you for looking into it, because it's another important piece.
Yeah, thank you very much. That is, the medical insurance was, as we were talking about next year's budget, we were going to get into that conversation again. And I was going to ask, did they by any chance come through with premium numbers? And the answer is no. I didn't think they would, but girl can dream. So Dick, did you have additional question, or is your hand just left up from before?
Apologies.
Okay.
I don't have an additional question at this point.
So Kristen, thank you for, yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have one other question. You guys may have already said this, but I was trying to get this meeting arranged, so I didn't really hear very much. I'm not gonna lie to you. Can you push the public hearing forward a little bit? You can't. Okay.
No, the public hearing has to be on or before May 1st, or is it just before May 1st? I can't remember exactly what the wording is, but before May 1st. So, no, sorry. But we do have until May 10th, which is when the budget has to be finalized for a referendum on May 18th. So we do have a small window of opportunity after the public hearing before we have to finalize our budget. And again, just a reminder to the board, once the budget that we put out there is expenditures only, if we find out there's a windfall, we can adjust the revenues and therefore adjust and set the mill rate accordingly. So that will happen after the referendum, after May 18th or whenever it passes.
Yeah, that's almost like, what, 4 weeks? And there just may be clarity on the federal monies on some of it. Like that.
Yeah, there may be clarity on many
health
things.
Insurance.
Yeah.
We're fine.
So do you want to set another date after the Board of Ed meets on the 29th of April, Emily, tonight?
I would like to. I know that we already have one on our calendar of May 6th, which I just need to look at a calendar to figure out when that is, which is a Thursday. So that's a week after yours. We can discuss whether we want to change that to be May 4th instead of May 6th or some other evening earlier in that week. It may be worth doing that, perhaps.
I think that would actually be wise, personally.
Okay.
Just give us a little bit more time. Yeah.
Okay. So if you think you're going to be able to meet on the 29th, Wood and Sandy and Jim, if the Board of Finance were to meet on the May 4th, does that step on anything that you have? Especially if the Board of Selectmen are trying to talk about additional givebacks. Sandy, or
May 4th is the Selectmen's next regular meeting, so none of us would be there.
And it probably at that meeting is when you would be talking about potential additional givebacks?
Correct.
Okay. So it doesn't make sense for us to meet on the 4th if that's, so we could meet on the 5th or just keep it on the 6th.
Yeah, let's just stick with the 6th in that regard then.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, so we will keep our May 6th. Obviously, as Kristen, if you have information, I can work to sort of build that in and sort of see what it looks like, so that as soon as we can drop all those pieces in, hopefully that conversation will go quickly. Thank you, appreciate it. And can you send me the information when you on that meeting if I'm allowed to sit in? At least I'll be able to hear it firsthand.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Okay, that would be great.
And if I forget, you just send me a reminder to send you the link. Okay.
I will do that. Okay, thank you. Any other conversations around just normal monthly town updates, education updates? Okay, then I'm going to move on to the next part of the agenda. Next item is charter revision discussion. I just wanted to give a very brief update to everybody. I know the Board of Selectmen has closed their public hearing. They have discussed all of the items that the Charter Revision Commission had proposed and given them either yays or nays on the entire list. I know one of the topics that has been of interest to this group is the structure of the Board of Finance going forward. And correct me, Sandy, if I'm not paraphrasing this correctly, but the Board of Selectmen voted to support the Charter Revision Commission recommendation of creating a finance committee that is made up of 2 people from the Board of Selectmen, 2 people from the Board of Education, and 3 additional elected people onto this finance committee.
That's correct, Emily. With the exception that the Board of Selectmen didn't vote, but rather did things by consensus.
Okay.
Excuse me, what do you mean by that? I didn't vote for that.
No. That not by unanimous consent, but okay, by majority consensus.
I guess I'll look up consensus in the rest of the dictionary.
Majority. Call majority.
Majority. Okay. It was not unanimous.
That's correct. But there were a few that were not unanimous. One of them being the combination of Inland Wetlands and Planning and Zoning, and the other being Board of Finance.
Thank you.
How is it possible to do this without actually voting? Or asking for unanimous consent? I don't understand that.
We have not yet submitted our report to the board, to the Charter Revision Commission, so it is not necessary to take a vote on it. We are still in discussions, and in fact, they are meeting tonight on some topics that we gave them back and asked them to flesh out their thoughts, one of them being the administrator's role and the other being the gender neutral language. And there was a third one, and I don't remember what it was, but it may well have been the amount
expenditure or referendum.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, exactly.
Thresholds.
Thank you. Yeah, the thresholds. So they will be coming back to us again. And at that point, we will be putting together a formal vote and taking votes on it. So at this point, we have a working document. We have nothing final.
Thank you for that clarification, because I was really puzzled. You didn't take action. This was simply back and forth discussion.
That is correct.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Okay. Kristen Gorley.
Sandy, was there a general consent?
We lost you.
Yep, on the verbiage that was decided on regarding reduce and revise for the budget for referendum.
Bob or Emily, I don't remember that. I'm sorry, and I don't have my notes.
We agreed to revise.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that I recall that as well.
Okay.
And I know there was discussion that with that potentially adding a question to it as to, so you vote on the expenditures, but then if you disagree, do you want it to go up or down or something like that?
An advisory question.
Is that what it, okay. Okay, any other questions? I just wanted to give a quick update because I know I've been doing that throughout all of our meetings, just on the status of what's going on over there. Okay, then let us jump into fiscal 2022 budgets, 2021-22 revenues, and where we're going to go with this. What I wanted to do is sort of start where we left off on Tuesday. If you can just give me a second so I can find that document. I think it's this one. Hold on. Okay. So just to hopefully start where we ended off. If we take a look at,
that bigger, please? Can you make it bigger?
Yeah, this is new, I think, right? Yeah.
This is, I basically took, I took Jill's document and just pulled out this one piece of it to look at, because I mean, we could look at the document we were looking at the other night as well, but it's the same thing. I just sort of pulled it out so that it would be easier to look at. Hopefully. If it isn't, then my bad. The first column was when we were talking about if we kept the mill rate as is, 38.86, and we don't do anything to our expenditures, what is the difference between revenues and expenses? There was some question on Tuesday night, what would the property tax value be? Jill was correct in her 7.12. When I was projecting the other night, I plunked it into the wrong bucket. Which didn't add something. So the general property tax is all added up with the mill rate at 38.86 is 17.297000. That gives us a delta of 1.2 million.
Those numbers are correct.
So 1,270,203.
Right, which is an increase from 17,122.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's sort of that's our gap. If we were to keep the mill rate flat and we didn't touch any of the expenditures, so full ask is satisfied. The other question that came up was, well, if we kept it at full ask, what would the mill rate be? After revising the revenues, we talked about the interest rate, not putting the full 75,000 in. I sort of put that to 30,000, which is sort of where we ended up. We would have a mill rate of 41.74. So, those are sort of our two boundaries. Those are we can keep it flat and figure out where to come up with 1.2 million. We can raise our taxes and make it up all that way and have a mill rate of 41.74.
We could request a mill rate of 41.74. Yeah.
Request, yes. I mean, this is exactly. I am going to, Charlie, yes.
Could I get a copy of this somewhere?
No, I was noodling with this afternoon. So no. Okay. That's why I'm projecting it. So I apologize. I could attempt to quickly send it out if that would be easier. Is it too hard to read on your screen?
It would be nicer if you sent it to us.
Okay.
But it's not an official document. You need to.
It is not an official document.
You need to make sure that it gets labeled quite clearly in all areas, draft.
Yeah, draft.
And I'd like to just
preliminary draft is better.
Yeah, I would just like to observe that the difference between those two mill rates and the full ask from the boards, and based upon our revenue assumptions, that is just basically translating the difference in mill rates into percentages, which I find much more helpful. That would result in basically a 10% increase in taxes.
So
3.88 over 38.86. Yeah, almost exactly.
Mm-hmm. Kristen Gorley.
I'm sorry, it was 2.88.
So as I'm looking at this, and to the point that was made earlier, is that we're in this weird pickle. We're waiting for money to come in that we know we're going to get. We just don't know how much it's going to be. Revenues, I would expect, would go up, but again, we don't know by how much. So that's tough to budget for. I think realistically, just thinking ahead, especially for this town meeting, just starting to think of talking points to what we're going to have to potentially propose realistically is some type of an increase in the mill rate. Just to compare apples to apples, we're not the only town in this situation. Do we know what the situation is with other towns? Are they in a comparable situation where they're looking at raising the mill rate by 2 or 3 mills?
I don't have any information. Sandy, do you by any chance know?
I can tell you that Vernon is projecting a reduction. South Windsor is projecting an increase. Coventry and I believe Hebron are projecting flat. But I think we have to remember that if you look at our mill rate, we have been at or below 39 mills since 2016.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been great. We've been great.
Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, I'd like to believe that is a sustainable mill rate, but in practicality, I don't think it is.
Correct.
You know, wages have gone up as a result of our union negotiations at both the board and the town side. Our utility costs have gone up. The costs of capital projects have gone up. And if you look at your own budget, I'm sure there's a lot of places that you'll see have gone up. Especially when you think back to 2016, that was a long time ago. And we've managed to keep our mill rate flat. So it's a hard nut to accept. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be an even harder nut to accept if we don't start thinking about what the future is, because our expenditure level is not sustainable to upkeep the programs and properties we currently have.
And Sandy, to your point, we've been at or below 39 since 2016. There was one year we did jump up. It wasn't above 39. But then it was a bigger jump than people liked, but then we sort of flattened it out and with a small decrease the next year and sort of kept it steady. So that is also something sort of in our history. Charlie.
You guys have done a great job.
We try. Thank you. Charlie.
Thank you. As far as, the mill rate going up 2 or 3 mills, the towns that have that kind of change are not quoting the percentage of increase in the budget. They're promoting that, gee, it's only a 2 mil increase. The other ones that are having a budget change of 2.86% in their budget are looking at where they've had a tremendous amount of growth in a particular year. Mm-hmm. We're not as fortunate to have that. So I'm looking at this and looking at what the potential cuts would have to be and not seeing any substantial cuts out there that I feel comfortable with yet. But, it's worth reviewing and worth going over. I just wish I knew more about what was going to happen with the givebacks and the health costs, because I think that's going to substantially change what we're looking at no matter what we do. So
correct. Bob Monroe.
Yeah, Sandy, when you said, you guys have been doing a good job, it's not us. It is the Board of Education and it's the Board of Selectmen.
Very true.
And the town administrator. The staff of this town has been absolutely fantastic, creative, and nose to the grindstone. One of the reasons why we're seeing a bigger gap here is because the Board of Selectmen has fine-tuned their budget. And so instead of them returning, $350,000, $375,000, they're looking at returning, 170 or something. Because they have minimized their budget overages. There's one more reason for this, okay? So yes, we are gonna have to increase taxes. In the last 5 years, what's happened, everybody else has increased theirs and we have not, we've gone down. 2 years, 1 year we went down 1.25%, last year, like 1/4. So yeah, we are gonna have to propose a substantial increase in taxes, but we need to find something that we think is going to be palatable to the town and then be able to sell it.
Yeah. Good point. Ross, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I would just like to make the distinction between the mill rate and what we are actually spending, because you can say like, yeah, we didn't raise the mill rate or we dropped the mill rate, but at the end of the day, the town needs a certain amount of money. When I say town, I mean Board of Education, as well as all the other parts of the town. It's everybody. So regardless of what the mill rate is, the town needs a certain amount of money. And that amount can go up every year and your mill rate can go down if you're fortunate enough to have the property values go up. So in some ways, the mill rate is a fiction when you compare it to what are you actually asking from each of the individuals of our town to shell out as taxes. It's not really related directly to the mill rate.
Yeah, it's arcane.
So that's what I just want to make clear about that, because we say, yeah, we kept the taxes down, and you know what? We did raise taxes from last year and the year before. But, you know, we raised the actual amount of money we took out of each taxpayer's pocket, even though the mill rate went down a fraction. So that's what I just want to be clear about when we talk about this, because the mill rate is kind of hokey in some ways. It just determines like how much, you know, what are we asking for in order to meet that, you know, the budget need. So that's what I would just like to, you know, to clarify. And then the other point is, you know, I'll bring it up later maybe, was we haven't talked about the contingency fund yet, because I have a separate question about that. But I just wanted to clarify about, you know, mill rate versus what we're asking folks for out of their pockets. You know, and also just to clarify about that too, is that in some ways, like grand list is funny money as far as people are concerned, because you can have people who are house rich but income poor. And that's another thing that you need to consider too when you talk about this. It's you're taking money that people don't necessarily have, because we're going by the value of property, not what they actually have for disposable income. Because a lot of them say, you increase my taxes $1,000, I don't have it, I don't sell my house in order to pay that. So that's just something else I just wanted to make clear when we're talking about, you know, a tax increase.
Thank you, Ross. Bob.
Yeah, Ross, to Ross's point, your taxes, we actually did have either a 1/4 or 1/8 of a percentage point decrease in the tax rate last year. So the only reason why somebody would have paid more is if the value of their house had gone up, or they did something or had an improvement. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they would have had, my tax bill went down by $15 or something like that. Yours should have too. So it's not fictitious, but the whole idea about mill rates is just arcane, and it makes the conversation more complicated than necessary. Okay. You just talk percentages and relate it to exact dollars.
Thank you, Bob. You will have to help me make those percentage translations, because I think mills and you think percentages. So, Sandy.
Thank you, Emily. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that there is a bill in the legislature that there's a hearing on next week that will, one, remove the tax on motor vehicles, and two, direct municipalities to tax their property at 100% of assessed value. We currently assess it, I believe, Charlie, 70%.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that will cause a big change in taxes if that comes to fruition.
So
do we think that's likely to happen?
I think something's likely to happen, Dick. I don't know what it is, because there are 5 new taxes that are up for public hearing next week.
If I might comment, for the last 5 years, there's been something out there with this in mind, and usually it takes about 5 years for it to pass the state legislature. And one of the goals is that the automobile tax will be going to the state instead of to the local community. And that way the state will have more flexibility and use, for example, a uniform mill rate so that nobody gets a break having their car in one town or another. Mm-hmm. And yet the state is thinking, well, they're not sure how they're going to disperse the money, if they're going to disperse money back to the community. So that's a whole different ball game. And at the same time, 100% is something that also goes with the fact of revaluations. And they'll be looking at having an annual adjustment to your grand list to reflect the 100% value, which theoretically will give you a more equitable situation, because not all properties increase or decrease in the same manner or process. So it's something that takes a bad situation and doesn't necessarily fix it, but it theoretically makes it more equitable and more confusing until it's done.
I'm with you on the more confusing, because I'm confused. So the property tax on property, 100% of assessed value. If that goes into effect, how does that affect this budget? I mean, is that?
It won't affect this budget.
It will not affect this budget. Okay. It'll affect.
I can't pass that retroactively.
Okay.
Well, no, the proposal is that it would affect the grand list of October 1st, 2021. We're working with the grand list of October 2020.
Okay. So this will be an impact for next year.
Yeah. And if anybody cares, it's Senate Bill 1105, and the hearing is Tuesday, April 20th at 9 a.m. via Zoom.
So even if this happens, all it means is our mill rate will adjust, because the grand list will go up by 30%, and the mill rate will go down by 30%. Just for, it's not exactly those numbers, but I mean, you understand the illustration. Yeah. What's really worrisome is how the state is going to redistribute the money, and that is just a power play by the cities to grab more of our money from the countryside.
That's the point. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Charlie, what did you say?
That's exactly their point of doing it. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. What I thought I would do is at least show, well, I guess my feeling is, in the sense that I'm getting, is that we can't go to the town, to the townspeople with an increase in their taxes by that amount. And I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but does anybody disagree with that? Hearing none.
Yep.
I'm going to guess. Pardon?
That's what you heard, none.
I heard none. So what I'm going to assume is that we need to be somewhere between these two. I think that it is not realistic to reduce our expenditures by 1.2 million and still be able to provide services to our townspeople and to our children. And I don't think it is appropriate to ask our townspeople for that much of an increase. So we need to end up somewhere in between these. And to the point that has been made several times, there are a few more unknowns. We don't know what additional givebacks we're going to get. We don't know. These numbers down here include the medical insurance as they knew it 2 months ago. So we don't know how much that is going to change, hopefully go down, but we're not sure. And we don't know about some of those federal and state grants, and we may not know that before we pass a budget. So that's just sort of the reality. So what I would like to throw up is just, I started running some numbers to try to get a sense of what each of these means. And if you give me a second to find it. I think this is it. Hold on a second, make it bigger. Bigger, bigger. Oops, that's too big. So what I tried to do is just put some stakes in the ground. The first set of numbers is if we went up by 1 mil. 1 mil is approximately going to add $441,000 in revenues, just for people to know. So every time we go up a mil, it's about 441,000. So if we were to raise taxes by 1 mil, our total reductions in order to balance this out would be, we would have to make $829,000 worth of reductions. I'm not saying where they're coming from. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that's what it would be. And
or possibly more money back from the boards.
Or possibly more money back from the boards, right? Any dollar that comes back from either of the boards will obviously offset that. Will offset that number. So if we are hoping we're going to get more, so that will obviously ease that number. But that's sort of where that is.
And a different estimate on expenditure in terms of health insurance. We haven't really discussed that.
Right. Yes. And I mean, we don't know that yet. So what is baked in here is from the old plan with the 17% premium increase. And what Sandy and Kristen are telling us is that the premium will be less. There will be more people who opt in, and what the difference between what they budgeted and what they're expecting in the new world, we won't know until after the public hearing. Dick, did you have another question?
Yeah. Would it be possible to make an educated estimate? In other words, I reduce the increase to, let's say, 10% for purposes of budgeting going forward, and if it actually turns out better than that, then we'll be pretty good.
I don't know if I know. From what I've heard from Sandy and Kristen, I don't think they know enough to even propose what they might be able to revise it down. I don't want to put words in Sandy or Kristen's mouth, but I'm just not.
We were at this point last meeting, and we decided that this meeting we would make an estimate and go with that. Excuse me.
I guess
Well, Dick, when we talked about that, we thought we'd have the rates from the state. We don't have the rates, and that's part of the issue. We don't have the rates.
Oh, okay. Well.
Yeah, we were hoping that we would. We didn't. We are here.
Yeah, and without those state rates, any guess would be exactly that. It would be like somebody who hasn't been part of these discussions just throwing out a number, which we may or may not meet.
Well, that's what 17% is.
No, 17% was real based on our prior bids.
Okay, and then it went up to 23.
That's correct, because that was real after the town of Thompson withdrew from CT chip.
But now my point is that we're back at 17 with no basis for going back to 17 either.
Well, the basis for not going back to 17 that was the number that it would have been had we stayed with the CT chip provider, which was Cigna. That was a firm bid from Cigna for our current coverage.
Oh, you're saying that we could have the coverage at 17%? And
yeah, that's a known number.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Bob Monroe.
Could you just scroll that up just a tiny bit so we can see the total expenditure line at the same time? Now down a bit so we can see her at the top. That's hard, I know. Okay.
I know. I could make it smaller. I don't know if that helps.
Okay, I'm interested in that middle scenario. So.
Okay, just to walk it through so everybody knows. So this first column here, I just made it as a 1 mil increase. The last column is a 2 mil increase. And if you remember from the page before, you know, sort of maxing out was 41.76. So I just sort of took steps in between our two endpoints. The middle column, I chose a mill rate of 40 because it was a nice round number. It's about 1.25 points up from where we are today. At that particular point, we would need reductions someplace about $767,000, which is still a large number. Again, any other givebacks that we get from the towns and the education and any other reductions that they can make based on medical insurance would help that and offset that.
And close that gap. Yep.
And close that gap. So I wanted to just throw these out there as starting points for the conversation and see where everybody's thoughts are. And I mean, if we came to an agreement, great. If we don't, that's fine. Kristen, I see your hands up.
Yeah, so here's one of my concerns, is that right now we go and it gets voted on, goes to referendum, and it can only, if it gets voted down, we can only reduce it, right? So just from that standpoint, we got to keep that into consideration of whatever we can't try and propose, I think, the lowest possible number. Because if it gets voted down, you know, then we can get ourselves into real trouble. I don't want to be in a position where we also end up cutting something that can raise revenue. It was mentioned earlier, I'm not really seeing anything at the moment that's a big cut. Maybe some skimming here and there, and that might help us get to a more realistic number. But I also think I think it's a very realistic possibility is that we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we are going to go in with a higher budget and we will probably end up getting money back, and we need to be prepared to speak to that at the end of the year, because those monies that we have left over, thanks to getting money, albeit late, but we couldn't include it in the budget, could actually lower the rate the following year. It doesn't help us for this year, but that's kind of like my long-term thinking with this. I don't know. I think I just threw out a lot for everybody to chew on, but that's kind of where my thought process is right now. A few things to consider.
Okay. Dick, you have your hand up.
I have to unmute myself. Didn't realize I had done that. So my understanding is that the difference in the two rates is, if you'll go back to the other pages, through 2.88 mils, right?
I'm sorry.
38.88.
What?
38.88. You look at the existing mill rate?
No, the mill rate, the existing mill rate, I subtracted from the all-in meet all the requests mill rate. So if you could go back to the other, maybe it's another file.
It is. Do you see it, or is it still the same thing?
I don't. Yeah, it's still the same thing.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, for some reason it doesn't allow me to flop them.
Okay, that's okay. So it's 3.88, I think, is the difference between the two mill rates. No change mill rate and the no cut mill rate. Correct? 38.86, 41.74. yeah, it's a 2.88, right?
Yeah, you said 3.8.
Yep.
2.88.
Yes.
So what would be instructive is if we, and 1.27 is what we need to, on the left one is what we need to cut out. Suppose we reduce that by half. That would mean a mill rate of add 1.44 to this, to the 38.8. I don't know what that is.
It gets to be 40.14, I think.
40.14.
That's my guess. I just calculated.
And start from there and make cuts to total 600 and what is it, 20,000 or something.
Okay, so what I think I hear you saying is if we have a $1.2 million gap, and if we can somehow solve
increase taxes to
cover half of that,
and then make cuts to cover the other half.
So what that would be resulting is closer to this middle one.
Yeah,
it'd be a little bit higher than mill rate of 40.
Yeah,
right. And that would get you to what you said about the 2.25.
Yeah. So that is an option. I don't really have the ability to run the numbers on the fly. I'm not that good.
No, that's okay. No one's that good. But I mean, that's where I would start the discussion with. The mill rate would be 40 point. Would you say 1.5 or 1.4?
Let's see. Well, 1.4. 40.11. That would leave you at 2.25.
Add 2.
I'm sorry.
1.44. Add 1.44 to 38.86.
And that'll get you to 40.25.
Really? Okay. 40.25.
I just want to caution everybody in terms of calculating the mill rate. I did spend time with Jill trying to understand how to do it, and there's some pretty significant nuances to, as opposed to just straight calculations. Right. So when we throw out a 41.11, it's going to be in the ballpark, but it may not be the exact, just because of some of those nuances of calculating the mill rate.
Yes. Let's all recognize that, but in terms of back of the envelope calculations,
as long as everybody's comfortable that this is back of the envelope and we're setting sort of a direction of what we would like to see, that's and I'm good.
It's to the unnecessary, for our purposes, it has a necessary accuracy.
So so what I'm hearing is a starting point. Well, so Dick, are you saying that a starting point of what we could take to the public hearing would be basically taking the 1.2, splitting the difference? Part of it would come from taxes and part of it would come from reductions, and taking that to public hearing?
So half of it would come from taxes, half of it would come from
reductions.
Reductions.
Yes. Request reductions.
Request reductions, right.
Not actual reductions.
Or would that also be potential givebacks, or is that automatic?
Any additional givebacks would be taken out of that.
Yeah. So, if we're saying that $600,000 is what we would be looking to reduce any of the budgets, any givebacks would cut that number down.
Yeah, the beauty of the givebacks to the boards is they only have to put up with them for 2.5 more months, whereas a cut to the next year's budget is forever, or at least 12 months.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Bob Monroe, you have your hand up.
Yes, I do. And firstly, Madam Chairman, I'd like to thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
It's perfect and very, very helpful. So anyway, my recommendation would be to look at that and make it, I think if we went to, we're presently at 38.88.
86. 38.86.
It's okay, leaving 14. So yeah, so my idea about the 40.11 should equate to basically a 4% rise in taxes. That's a lot. And then we'd have to go on with some reductions. But as Sandy was saying, you know, we've kept this thing steady. Basically, we were averaging 1% increase in taxes a year over the last 5 years. Actually, less than that. I mean, it's like 0.4%. So if we went up 4%, the total would be rise over 6 years would be 6% or 1% a year. That's it. And that is due to the diligence of the people in this town and making dollars go further and doing stuff that makes sense. So it's time we have to move it up. And we may have opportunity as a consequence of monies flowing to this town from the feds and state to go right back to where we were with maybe a reduction next year or something like that. So we've got to bite the bullet. We've got to convince the town to do that. And the question is, what is the reasonable amount? I'm going to suggest 40.11 mill rate.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay. Charlie, thoughts on that as a stake in the ground?
It's a good starting point, yes.
So Bob Monroe, why do you think 40.11 is the right number? Because I get 40.3 if you split the difference.
Okay, I'm thinking, and without, you know, I don't use calculators or math or anything else. I just do it in my head. And when I'm going to look at it is 4% tax increase. To me, that gives me $600,000 in revenue from taxes. And just to Emily's point, what happens is the law that's in effect right now in regards to motor vehicle taxation is anything above 39 on motor vehicles is not taxed, if I recall. Where it's only taxed at 39. So you don't get that difference. So there would be some cut, as Jill was pointing out to Emily, some reduction. It won't be the full thing. It'll be somewhat less. But I think a 4% increase in taxes is very reasonable under the circumstances.
Yes, yes.
And that when we've cast it in the history of the last 5 and this will be our 6th year of 1% rise in taxes per year, I think that this town is doing a hell of a job.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Kristen.
So I agree with everything you just said. And if this was last year and that was the starting off point, I would completely agree. My, again, concern is that it's going to have to go to referendum. And what's being proposed at the moment is like on the dot, is what I feel. Does that give us enough of a margin? I don't really feel it gives us a margin. And that's what makes me uncomfortable. I'd hate to have this get voted on and get voted down. And then we end up really having to have some serious cuts. Because I like the discussion. I like everything about it, but I'm concerned about it actually getting passed when it goes. Well, first off, it'd have to go to the public hearing, but then would this realistically go through the first time around? I mean, you know, over the last 5, 6, 7 years, it seems like, you know, we usually go through 2-3 rounds of getting the budget passed.
One.
Last year was 1, right? Well, last year doesn't count. We've approved
last year doesn't count.
Last 5 years, one referendum. But your point is well taken, Kristen. And maybe we have to make it like 40 1/4, give us a little bit of leeway.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, to make some reductions. And of course, the thing that happens there is we get more information that we don't have now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's kind of buying us some time.
Especially to get through public hearing.
Yeah.
because there's going to be some very valid, points made about having it be lower. And I totally understand that. But you're right, it would buy us a little bit of time. So we would actually, by the time it actually does go to get voted on, that we'd be able to have something a little bit more realistic.
Yeah, have some clarity, about what we believe will happen.
Yep.
And this is the dilemma we were in 6 years ago. It was different though. There, the state had no money. Now the state's got all kinds of money.
Question is, how much are they going to share of it with us?
Exactly.
So, Ross, how are you feeling about the conversations?
No, I think it makes sense to go into the public hearing with a little bit of a cushion, with the explanation to the public that there's some uncertainty that we're going to listen to you guys tonight. Here's the rationale behind what we're doing. We've got some uncertainty in these numbers. This is our best guess now. We want to hear from you what you think, and we're going to take that information plus the new info we're going to get on what the state is going to give us, what the insurance rates will be, and we'll come up with, the final numbers, which we are hoping will be lower than this. Because I agree that if we start out too low, you're going to set an expectation with folks that it's only going to go down from there if we go to a referendum. So I do think that we do need to go in with a little bit of a cushion just because of this uncertainty.
Okay.
And then it's like you listen, we get the input, and then we get the real numbers, and we come back with what we say is our best we can do now.
Okay. Bob, I see your hand up.
Yeah, very quick thing. We need to keep in mind that, and Emily, and I complimented you regarding this last meeting, we've already reduced, in order to even get to this point, the contingency fund from $250,000 to $25,000. So we don't have much room here. So more to Kristen's point, let's go with a bit higher. Contingencies back to where it was 15 years ago.
And I was going to say, Bob, you were kind of putting our contingency fund in the individual budgets for Board of Selection and Board of Education.
That's my daughter calling. I get it declined. Oh, my wife got it. Okay. Sorry.
No, what I was just saying is we lowered the official contingency fund back to $25,000, but Board of Selection and Board of Education, because of uncertainties in certain of their numbers, like the insurance, have put in, a cautionary number. So that effectively is your contingency. It's just in a different place.
Well,
yeah, it's just because we have cushions in here. It's just a matter of where they are, because if we put it in contingency and took it out of Board of Selectmen and Board of Education, and then gave it back to them later, or gee, they didn't need it, and we put it into the next year, it's still the same amount of money we're talking.
Oh, yeah, but Ross, the problem they have there is the people who are not participants in the group plan now electing in. And each one of those is going to cost somewhat south of $25,000 if they elect family. So that's why they're really hedging on this.
Oh, I know.
And we're still going to have to cut. We're still going to have to make reductions here.
No, Bob, what I'm saying is I'm not challenging that. I'm saying it's the right thing that they're doing. It's a matter, all I'm saying is you could take it out of those two budgets and put it into the contingency fund, and you would still spend it regardless of whether it's in Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, or in contingency.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay,
that's all I'm saying is we have an uncertainty, and it's just a matter of where we're putting it. Are we putting it in the contingency fund? No, we've decided we're going to put it in the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen rather, and Board of Education, because they legitimately have to hedge their bets.
Yeah, that's all. You are right. I'm sorry, I'm just wrong what I said.
Yeah, that's all. We have uncertainty regardless of where we register. That's all I'm saying.
I was uncertain what you were saying.
We have uncertainty everywhere. Okay. So the general consensus I hear is we do need to go in with some cuts. We need to go in with some reductions. My apologies for the terminology. Go in with some increase to the taxes. We initially were saying take the 1.2 and split it in half. Now I think what we're saying is maybe have a slightly higher in the tax increase and a slightly lower in the reductions so that it's about, it looks to be about a 40.11. Is that sort of where we're actually 40.11 gives us the half and half, the 600. So it's going to be slightly higher than that.
Right, and we're going to be hopeful the real serious, further and serious review by both boards closes that gap significantly, and maybe we make the rest of it up in insurance. So,
Emily, could I interject? Would that be okay?
Yes, you may. So
just some data that I think the board needs to consider, and I think it moves to Kristen's point. We have 140 staff members eligible for insurance. Currently 110 take it.
Mm-hmm.
That means we have 30 staff members who potentially could make a choice during open enrollment this year because of the change. So I'm just putting that out there, and it goes to Kristen's point, I think, about making it a little higher than what Bob and Dick had originally talked about, at least for purposes of the public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe by the time we get to the 6th, and after you hear from the townspeople at the public hearing, we'll have further information to make even more informed decisions. You will. So I'm just throwing that out there as, I think, data that you need to have.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Kristen Gorley.
So, okay, this is, the sales rep in me. If you don't ask, you don't get. I think in this particular situation, I think we should just go large and ask for the 40.86. Because we know realistic, we will probably reduce that number, but I think it should be thrown out for public discussion. It gives us the push. The worst thing that happens is, we reduce it. That's kind of where my mindset is. And then we also have the numbers ready, and we can speak to it. We can speak to the fact that we're waiting to hear on these other sources of money hopefully coming through. But yeah, I say we just go for it a little bit bigger. I think the 40.86, excuse me.
So basically the 2 mils above where we are right now.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that is for our, we've got a $1.2 million gap. That means that 900,000 of it we're raising in taxes, and no, actually no, 800,000 we're raising in taxes, and about 400,000, 388,000 we're looking for reductions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just summarizing.
Yeah.
Dick Tuttle.
Just a reminder for a couple things. Remember that the part of the grand list that went up substantially was automobiles, and we're only going to be able to go 0.14 mils up on the automobiles. The rest of it was a tiny increase, and so that's going to drive the mill rate higher. Either that or the 40.86 that you're looking for is not going to give you the desired bang for your buck down at the bottom line red numbers. Those numbers are going to be larger. Yeah. Secondly,
can I just make one point, Dick? Thank you for pointing that out, because when I was creating this, the motor vehicle, the whole grand list, I just used that. And not splitting ones that capped at 39 and then the rest of it. So that is a consideration in terms of this. But so my scenarios are simplified on that aspect. So sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. Continue, Dick.
Yeah, okay, thanks. The second thing is, if and when we decide to make cuts to the requests, I would be in favor of telling the boards, you can satisfy that cut either way, either turning over more money this year or taking the cut for next year. Your choice.
Well, it is kind of their choice already.
What?
It's kind of their choice already. It's what it's going to be.
Well, it's kind of their choice, but I mean, yes, all I'm saying is we ought to go ahead and make the cuts and then just tell them if they can see their way to reduce them by cutting this year, go ahead, we will honor that. You understand the nuance?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dick. Charlie.
I think everybody would try. I think everybody would try to make it this year if possible. Real hard. Anyway, thank you.
Okay. We do have an error in the calculation of how the dollars amounts are going to be coming up because of the fact that the motor vehicles are handled different than the real estate and personal property might be handled. We also don't know what's going to happen as far as what additional funds may be available because of either the various budgets being allowed to give us more available funds for this thing. Personally, I trust the public out there to come to the meeting and tell us what they want. So I have no problem with going with the full ask mill rate. And after having the public hearing and having better information, that we could then make the adjustments that the public indicates they want us to make on this budget. To arbitrarily say that we're going to be reducing it by $400,000 when I look at their budgets, I'm looking at it and saying $400,000 could virtually, if they eliminate, they could decimate some of these budgets. Let's say where the monies are increasing this year, they take the monies that would have been an increase and take it out of the budget. It could totally destroy what that particular budget for that particular department was contributing to the town and to the public. So when I look at this, I'm sitting back and saying, no, I know we have to go with a higher mill rate. We have to let the public just help us decide what it's going to be. And I don't have a problem going with the full boat as an initial thing. And then after the public hearing, coming up with something that we have drawn to as a consensus based upon the information we have at that time. So.
What is other thoughts on that? Bob DiPietro.
Yes, hard to disagree with what either Charlie or Bob or Kristen have in the head. But I'm going to go back to, I don't know if you knew this or not, Emily, but before I became a teacher, for a couple of years, I was a claim adjuster with Liberty Mutual. And the reason I was successful in the way I was trained was not to go into a lawyer's office and lowball them, but say, this is what this is worth because of this, this, and this. Present the facts. Bob Monroe, in the past, has done an excellent job of telling the public at a public meeting or hearing what the behind the reason for whatever he presented in his presentation. And I think that's what we need to do here now. I don't expect anybody in the public to be saying, raise my rates. I want to pay more taxes. They're not going to say that. Of course not. So I think if we take Superintendent Heck's perspective that we have the potential and bring forward those numbers, what that may mean, and tell them all what we're doing, why, I think that should suffice, period. I'm done.
Thank you, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard a couple people talk about, let's have the public hearing help us figure out where we want to land. Now, in past public hearings, I mean, obviously they will give us an indication as to what they think. They're not going to tell us what number to land on. That's not something that we've ever gotten out of a public hearing. So I want to make sure that if we are going in high, which I don't disagree with, I think that is a sound strategy, that we need to make sure that we are, or maybe I am crafting my message appropriately so we get the appropriate feedback so we know what to do after the public hearing.
Yes.
Which means I have some work to do, but that's okay. Part of the job. Oh, Bob Monroe, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. And Bob, I just wanted to thank you for what you said. That was very, very nice of you. Yeah, the philosophy behind that was trying to make it as close to reality as possible each time, which is why, and I think we did present a believable message, which we need to do this time. And that's why we were getting these approved with one referendum.
Right.
So, you know, I heard what Kirsten actually, right? And Kristen said. And you know, when you listen to Kristen Hecht in that regard, 30 people with no insurances that could conceivably all opt in for a family rate wouldn't happen, but it could conceivably happen. And the rate per person there would be somewhat less than the existing $25,000 family, presumably, in regards to the new state rates. But that would be $700,000 plus. So I really understand their reluctance on this, and Sandy's in the same boat, just at a smaller percentage. So I guess that would certainly argue, and taking into Kristen's other, you know, Kristen Corley's comment, to provide a little bit more slap, you know, maybe we move it up to 40 and a quarter or something, you know, make it a mil and a half. But and then try to educate the public as to what the history's been, where this would put us, and about the uncertainty. And we're asking for them, as we asked 5 or 6 years ago, for that backing of confidence, so we get more clarity.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Bob DiPietro, is your hand still up, or
no?
A new question?
No.
Nope. Okay, I just didn't want to miss you.
No, thank you.
Dick Tuttle.
Do we have the size of the two grand lists, the motor vehicle and the real estate?
Maybe.
At hand?
Yes. Hold on a second.
0.5 million for the vehicles, I think.
I've got it. I got it someplace. Oh.
All I need to do is find my pencil. There we go. Go ahead.
Find the eraser first, Dick.
Tax summary would have it.
Yeah, I just have it. So if you give me a second, I can share my screen.
I've got a bunch of things open, and my brain's getting kind of fried.
I had it. I'll read you the numbers because oh, I see, because it's a Word doc. That's why. Okay, so you want the real estate, personal property, and motor vehicle?
Sure. The real estate and personal property can be lumped together because they're subject to the same rate, right?
Okay, well, if you've got a calculator, I'm going to break them out because that's what it's on the sheet.
Go ahead.
Real estate, 391,698,571.
Okay, got it.
Personal property, 14,898,538.
Yep.
Motor vehicle, 43,860,760.
And the amounts raised are simply the mill rate times times each of those is the sum of two. So it'd be 39 plus whatever it is that we. All I'm going to do is make a graph of the overall mill rate and how much money it raises.
Okay.
I'll have that for the next one.
Just remember.
I'll send it to you.
Just remember, we budget collections at 98%.
98% of that. Thank you. That's
yes.
The reason I asked that question.
Thank you, Sandy, for reminding me of that. That's something I tend to forget. Yes, we budget at 98% of the total.
Of each total, sure.
Yep. Which is part of one of the nuances in calculating that on the fly that makes it a bit of a challenge.
I'll send you that.
Okay. So in terms of next steps, we have a meeting scheduled for Tuesday. We will not have any new information from in terms of givebacks, insurance, revenues, or anything like that. So what we would be talking about is what is the actual number that we're taking to public hearing. So I will ask the group now have we come to a consensus on, do we know what we want to take to public hearing? In which case we will just decide now, or do we want to have me run some of those numbers with the max at 39 for motor vehicle to come up with that and walk through that Tuesday night and then make the decision.
Let's walk through it Tuesday night.
Okay.
I'll send you the graph anyway.
Okay, Bob Monroe, you have your hand up as well.
I was going to say that too. Yeah, let's. If you could get and Jill can be helpful here. Because of these nuances, and as Sandy pointed out, it's 98%. So there's a couple things here that really need to be addressed. Mm-hmm. I think you could come up with just maybe two scenarios. What I've heard, there's some support at least for going with a full 41 point.
The full boat, yep.
And I think that there's some support for something less, something like 40, maybe 40.3 or something like that, which should give us some slot for 40.4. I think if we get down to like those two scenarios, granted, as you say, and accurately, we're not going to have any more information than that. But then we could, look at those numbers in pretty exact terms. And I guess, we already have them for the higher number. I'd like to see for the lesser medium compromise type number. And then I would be ready to, but I'm pretty sure I know where I'm coming from. So
Emily, all I'm going to send you is a simple Excel spreadsheet, which has that formula in it. And I'll also do a graph so that you could, total revenues raised additional versus the mill rate. And we can very quickly.
There is another small nuance in there that I can work to.
What is the nuance?
It has to do with the elderly relief component that needs to be incorporated in there as well. So, and okay. Sandy's nodding her head, and I don't understand all of the bits and pieces around that, but that's another piece of that makes it not just a straightforward calculation.
So do we know the governing equation to model that or not?
I do not have that, but I will try to figure that out.
Well,
it's in the statutes, Dick, and it varies year to year. So you really need to have the assessor's records, and it's based on income. So it's almost a plug number, but not really.
Based upon income and.
Thank you, Charlie.
Income and what?
And the finalized mill rate too, which adds to the confusion.
So, okay, so that's okay. The mill rate is going to be an independent variable here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so Dick, please send me what you have, and based on what I do know, and with that, I can hopefully marry all that together, so that we can have that for Tuesday.
I'll talk to Charlie to make sure what I send you is commensurate with what needs.
Okay. Charlie's the resident expert on that one. So, okay. Ross.
Yep, I was just going to say I agree with just what folks have said. Let's go take a look at the numbers. And I think what we want to just make sure of is that we take to the town a number that we are convinced we're not going to come back to them and say, oops, we're going to be higher than what we just showed you. Mm-hmm. And, because we realize if we go in low, we're cutting something that we really cannot cut. So that's all I would just add as a caveat to that is let's go in with a number that is realistic, that we feel would only go down when we get additional information from the state, from the insurance and from whatever, and do it that way, because you don't want to do it the other way.
I agree with that. Yes. And I see lots of heads nodding. So yeah, I don't think we would want to go into the public hearing unless they say, to Bob DiPietro's point, I want to pay more, please, please. So, if they do that, then okay, but I doubt they will. You know me, I'm taking notes, so I'm just jotting things down. Kristen Gorley.
I think Dick may have been first on that one.
Oh, sorry. Dick Tuttle, thank you. You're muted. Still muted.
Yeah, my apologies. I failed to take down my hand.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Just the one thing that I would like to throw in then for Tuesday, as we're coming up with this realistic, ask. And I think going back towards everybody's point of just the honesty and transparency of what we're bringing to the table is simultaneously, and obviously you do that now anyways, Emily, we all just take notes down for talking points, just to make sure we're as prepared as possible, because there are going to be, I can only imagine, there are going to be a lot of questions on this, mm-hmm. and it's fair. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with answering the questions.
Yes, that would be helpful, especially if somebody directs a question to any one individual. Mm-hmm. And it will be a Zoom, so it will be sort of as it was last year, a little interesting to try to manage all of that. Charlie.
My point on this about the increased mill rate was not, in the public, was not so much to go and say, how much taxes do you want to have them raised, but instead to find out what their suggestions are, where they want the cuts to take place, because the cuts are going to be so difficult to make, or are we going to be cutting something that nobody wants to cut? So it's just to get the public input on that is my point as far as going in with a higher mill rate to start with. But I think from what I've heard, it also means that we have to go in with a higher one, because we're not being fair to those taxpayers that are expecting all these services that we're offering, and then not providing it to them. So I'm not sure what the answer is. Just information is the biggest thing to get.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Bob and Roe.
Yeah, to your point, Charlie, look, my experience with this is going to many of these public hearings. You're not going to get those kinds of questions. And, if you get some at all besides why is the tax rate so high? That would be about it. There may be a few people come up with something very specific because they have that deal. But I do want to say, I think this was a good discussion, and that a lot of good points were made. I'm still looking for something, lower than I think some of the other people, but I think we can finish that off on Tuesday night.
Okay.
And I think what we need to keep in mind is, when we're thinking about deferring to the taxpayers, and we do, but we are the elected reps of those taxpayers. That's what this discussion's all about. And I think that each of us is hopefully carrying the full weight of that responsibility. That's what we're doing.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, I think I have my direction of what I need to work on over the next few days. I also am going to start putting some thought, because I've been taking many pages of notes, as you know I always do. Whoops, one of them fell on the floor, hopefully. All right, I got to retrieve it so I don't lose it. Great comments in terms of what needs to be included in the public hearing presentation. So I want to start crafting that. And so that we're ready. And is there any other conversation we want to have tonight? I know it's 9:30. If not, then I will Dick, I see your hand up. Yes. Dick? Mr. Tuttle.
I'd just like to ask Charlie if there's some time we could have a phone call tomorrow and discuss how to model the exemptions. It strikes me as if they're income dependent, and
that's complicated even more. We won't have the numbers until May 15th. So
so basically, I think we have to
on last year's.
I think we have to do something historical,
yeah.
Which is exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Is there some time we could talk tomorrow?
Sure. And keep trying me. I'm usually free.
Okay. Likewise. So I'll give you a buzz in the morning sometime at 9 o'clock or after.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I will work on scenarios, the two that we talked about. And we will meet on Tuesday via Zoom, 7:15, our standard time. Sorry, Kristen Heck, you have a very cute puppy.
Sorry, yeah, I think she heard me take my glasses off and thought, oh, my mommy is now free and she's mine. Sorry. I may not be there Tuesday night, Em. I'm just not sure. So I'll do my best.
Okay. Sounds good. Dick Tuttle, did you have something else, or is that left over? Sorry.
Nothing else. Apologies again.
Okay. No worries. I just don't want to miss anybody, and I don't always catch when hands go up and down. Then I guess if there's nothing else for this evening, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the snow that we're going to get tomorrow. Snow? Sandy's going, what? Snow, yes, I don't know.
Absolutely.
After 11 tonight.
Great. So excited for that. Of course, it's in the middle of the night. At least it's not on a weekend. And I will see, hopefully, everyone Tuesday night.
Okay. Be safe,
Thank you,
everybody.
for all your conversations and all your hard work. It's been, I think, fairly productive. So we will see you then. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Stay safe.